everybody to Walking Between Shadows. We're your host. I'm Ben,
I'm Taryn.
and we love bringing these stories to you. So we're back with a story out of Tennessee, and this is going back to the 13th Judicial District of Tennessee, right, Taryn?
That's right.
Yeah,
Phil, Tennessee.
Cookville. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're kind of in the biggest population center or the seat of the 13th Judicial District.
That's right.
Okay,
hmm
and so the case we're going to talk about is very similar to the one we posted last week,
Yes, Sarah Phillips.
Sarah.
hmm Very similar.
And so there's mainly a disposition in the case, but it's still wide open.
It's still wide open.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so.
So on June the 3rd of 21, Josh Bohannon was last seen at a gas station in Cookville. He and his wife Jessica had decided to visit Burgess Falls State Park. But conflicting information indicated that the couple engaged in criminal activity at the park that day. Rangers working at the park recalled seeing Jessica at a house out on the park grounds. It appeared she was attempting to break into that house. Rangers didn't report seeing Josh at that time, and according to Jessica, he ran off into the woods when the couple realized they were being approached. Jessica then left the park, going to the nearest gas station to get more gas, and later returning to look for Josh. When her attempts to locate Josh were unsuccessful, she drove back to tell his family in person that she couldn't find him. So that's the general idea of what happened,
Yeah,
according to her.
according to her. Yes. And there is a surveillance camera that did catch Josh on it at a gas station
Mm-hmm.
the morning of June 3rd.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is a very, I don't know, it makes you scratch your head. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot to it. And I guess the best way to do this is go back to who Josh was.
Yeah.
So Josh Bohannon was born on January the 6th of 1994 to his parents Howard and Alicia Allen Bohannon. He had a brother named Jason, and I believe Jason was a little bit younger than Josh,
Mm-hmm.
but they were extremely close. These two had a very strong bond between them and did everything together and were each other's helpers. I mean, they really were. Um, I read over this and I was researching this and listening to a couple people from Josh's family, um, with the posts and things about Josh.
Mm-hmm.
And he was funny, and he was a in love with his family, very
Mm-hmm.
much so. And it took a village with him and his brother. I mean, there was bonus aunts and also biological aunts and uncles that just took him in
Mm-hmm.
and loved him. He loved to play basketball.
Yeah.
And
So why did it take a village? What was going on that so many people had to interact with him?
I think it was not only was he just extremely lovable
Mm-hmm.
and friendly, but he also, at 9 years old, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
No.
And it was pretty brittle. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
he was on, several different medications to control his diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
And he had learned how to do that. He was able to take care of himself pretty well. He knew when he needed to eat and when he needed to get his sugar up or down and
Mm-hmm.
what he needed to do that.
Yeah. But at 9 years old, when you find something like that out, you're
Right.
helpless. You
Oh,
need a lot of help.
sure. And all these people in his life were there for him.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was 2017, but I believe around that time is when he met his wife, Jessica.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they married in 2018 and had two small children, a boy and a girl.
Mm-hmm.
And Josh was still dealing a lot with his diabetes. He really
Yeah.
was. And from what I understand and what I've read about, this seemed like kind of a toxic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
There were drugs involved. Josh's brother Jason did tell him 2 weeks before Josh went missing that if you don't leave Jessica, you're going to end up dead.
Mm.
He said that because of the drug use. I mean, Josh being as sick as he was, he also, and using anything on top of that.
Yeah.
And what I kind of gathered is that Jessica's father was providing, these drugs, pills
Mhm.
and things like that,
Mhm.
methamphetamines, things that will really mess up someone with diabetes,
Yeah.
really
Well,
bad.
and compound that, he had another problem that he suffered from, and it was spinal stenosis.
Yes. Yes.
And, spinal stenosis is rough. It can be mild, like you just have, symptoms of numbness and tingling and stuff like that too. It can be pretty harsh. Like you can lose complete feeling in parts of your body. You can lose control of your bowels. You can lose control of everything.
Right.
Um, and it's got to be miserable.
Oh, I mean, 27 years old,
Hmm.
trying to provide for a family. And from what I understand, he very much loved his wife
Hmm.
and his kids, and he did everything he could for them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it tough for him to hold down a job? I mean, was he?
I wonder that too. I looked on his page and I saw that there were some posts about him doing pressure washing
Hmm.
and things like that, which took me down into a rabbit hole with this too.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
you know, um, but yes, there was some things posted a couple weeks before Josh went missing that were suspicious. I mean, it looked like his wife had taken over his Facebook account
Hmm.
and was posting things to like items to sell, kind of like purses from Cracker Barrel that still had the tags on them and things like that. I mean, just weird things, Roombas
Yeah,
and power drills, but day planners. I mean, just quantities of them.
yeah.
And it was odd. It seemed kind of odd to me. I don't know if that's what was going on then, if they were.
Like stealing it and reselling it.
I believe that I have read that Jessica was stealing a lot of things
Hmm.
and posting them, to Facebook Marketplace and other places like that.
Sure, sure.
They were both arrested in December of 2022. Jessica and Josh were
Say
both
what?
arrested. I'm not exactly sure for what. I don't know if it stemmed from maybe stealing things or if it was, I'm not exactly sure.
Hmm.
But they both were arrested. And Jessica gets out before Josh. She's bonded out by her boyfriend's dad, her boyfriend. And she was married to Josh and they had these two children. And from my understanding, they were living with Josh's family.
Hmm. Well,
And
but that's an interesting point that you can elaborate on there. This boyfriend,
right,
he'd been in the background for a while.
a minute.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, there was even a post put up. So she gets out. Well, first of all, let me say this.
Yeah.
So she gets out, she gets bonded out by her boyfriend's dad. And Josh is still in jail.
Mhm.
And Josh's family is wondering where Jessica's at. She just disappeared with Nathan. She moves in with him, this boyfriend of hers.
Mhm.
And in January, puts up a post on Facebook and says, I'm in a relationship with this Nathan guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a picture of them. So, yeah, she was still married. And
This was before he went
this,
missing.
this
This
was
was before any of these events.
before any of these events. And so, yeah, that's there. So remember that.
Mhm.
Um, Now, I believe on June, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I believe on June the 2nd of 2021, they spent the night with somebody. Jessica and Josh spent the night with a friend of Josh's.
Mhm.
And this friend was giving them meth for some of the items that they had, that Jessica had stolen or that they both had stolen. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But that's what happened. And in the middle of the night at some point, this friend wakes up and or was already up and realizes that Jessica had been stealing from him and makes him leave.
Mhm.
At 9 o'clock in the morning, Jessica and Josh are seen on a Gulf station surveillance video,
Mhm.
and he was seen then. So that's for sure on that day.
Mhm.
Jessica says they leave this Gulf station and they go to this park and play, and they park their vehicle and they sleep for a couple hours. And around 11:30, about 11:30, they wake up and Josh says, "Let's go to Burgess Falls."
Mhm.
And that's a state park. up around Cookville.
Yeah.
And they find this abandoned house.
Mhm.
And this is all what Jessica says. They
Mhm.
find this abandoned house and they both go into this house. They hear somebody pulling up into like the driveway and they look out and they see it's park rangers. So Josh goes to the basement and Jessica goes out front to distract the rangers.
Mhm.
And I'm not exactly sure. I think she tells them that she's trying to find jobs.
Right.
I'm not exactly sure what she tells them, but they didn't find her suspicious. Even though she didn't have a driver's license, she was on a violation of probation, hadn't been picked up yet. She had warrants.
Mhm.
But she wasn't acting suspicious, wasn't acting wild, So she just left.
Yeah.
Now at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Jessica spotted again on a abandoned home's ring camera. I'm not sure if it's abandoned or if the people just weren't there,
Mhm.
but the neighbor sees Jessica and comes out and, Jessica says, "Look, my husband's down the street working, power washing homes, and I'm just out trying to find some homes and some work."
Mhm.
And then she leaves there. Where Josh is at this time, from 12 o'clock when the park ranger saw Jessica
Yeah.
until, at 2 o'clock, I don't know.
Yeah.
Jessica leaves the park and says she goes to get gas and comes back and looks for Josh.
Mhm.
Doesn't call the police, doesn't call, his family, but just drive to his family's home
Mhm.
and tells them Josh is missing. Well, they think it just happened. Well, he'll call. He'll call. He always calls. His insulin was in the vehicle,
Mhm.
and his wallet was in the vehicle.
Yeah.
I believe at that point is when Josh's mother and Jessica get into an altercation.
Mhm. Yeah.
Jessica ends up jumping the back fence and taken out. Didn't help find him or anything. Well, when Josh didn't call, the family goes to Putnam County to file a missing person report. And when they do that, Putnam County tells them to go to White County and file this missing person report because that's where he was last seen.
Mhm.
They go and do that, and White County does take the missing persons report, but they don't go out and search for him immediately.
Yeah.
And I got to looking into this too and finding out that there's a law that when somebody is dependent on medication
Mhm.
or is physically, sick or mentally,
Mhm.
there's an alert put out called a silver alert.
I thought that was just for old
I
people.
did too, but it's not. It is for people that are also medically dependent.
Yeah.
That was not put out.
Yeah.
Family goes back and the Rangers and family search, for Josh. They ask Jessica, what house was this at?
Mhm.
She claims that it was a gray house. It was a yellow house. Oh, maybe it was a green house.
Mm. So
Trying to
she's changing her story a bunch.
Right. And very crucial time to find him.
Yeah.
She's changing her story, and it just seems like she's trying to divert
Mm.
law enforcement and family away from anywhere that he could possibly be.
Yeah.
Turns out that it was a brick house that they were at, or that she was at, that the park ranger saw her at.
Mhm.
And yeah, so that was one story. Jessica is put into jail for her violation very soon, like maybe the next day after Josh goes missing.
Mhm.
And then she tells the family that Josh was last with a guy, and they said, "Well, who is this guy?" She says, "Well, she gives him his name. She gives this name. Turns out this guy's in jail. You know,
Yeah.
right
At
now,
that time,
right at
yeah.
that time, he is in jail.
Yeah.
So it couldn't have been him." Then she claims that she left Josh in that abandoned house in a basement. Then she tells law enforcement that no, he took off out the back door.
Mhm.
of that abandoned house whenever he knew that law enforcement was there or the Rangers pulled up. It freaked
Yeah.
him out and he took out.
Yeah.
So he must have just took off running in the woods.
Okay.
Um, Now he didn't have his insulin. Like I said, he did not have his insulin.
Mhm.
But come to find out, he had an aunt that lived 3 doors up from this abandoned house that he could have went up to her home.
So this abandoned house was at Burgess Falls, right?
Right,
Okay. I got you.
right. And yeah, so he could have went up to his aunt's house.
Mhm.
There was also another aunt that was about a mile and a half from this abandoned home.
Mhm.
Her husband was insulin dependent. He could have went there and gotten insulin.
Right. Right.
So, and he knew these things. I mean, this was not something he didn't know. So, I mean, yeah, there's there's that. It wouldn't he have went
You would
somewhere?
think he would gone to the closest place he could think of,
Yeah,
which would have been his aunt.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. So he allegedly disappears into the woods.
Yes.
What happens?
Months go by,
Mhm.
time goes by. Um, a couple searches are done. I believe by the White County
Mhm.
um, Sheriff's Department. Park rangers also did some searching.
Yeah.
It's nothing. I mean, the park rangers even said, I don't believe he was ever here. Cadaver dogs didn't pick up anything, or even not cadaver dogs. What are they called? Just
Bloodhounds.
the bloodhounds. Yeah,
Mhm.
that follow scent. They
Yeah.
couldn't pick it up.
Well, and Burgess Falls is not a big area.
Is it not?
No.
It's
No.
beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful, but it's rough up through there.
It is. It's very, I guess, rolling terrain, but yeah, Burgess Falls is not very big at all.
No.
So,
And I know there was a lot of during this time when Josh was missing, what was going on with Jessica is that she was in a very serious relationship, like within weeks after Josh was missing, before he was even 2 months, I believe. Um, After he went missing, he wasn't even found yet. I
now
mean,
this is the same guy she posted about before
that's
this
right.
all happened.
That's right.
Okay.
Um, so that's a big red flag. It's a
Sure.
big red flag. It's just odd to me that there wasn't more. And from my understanding, she was not really questioned that much.
Mhm.
You know, she also signs her rights over to the state when she's in jail.
Signs her rights over for what?
The kids. So
For
she,
her and Josh's kids?
yes.
Okay.
So she gives them up to the state. And it's like Josh's family said, it just seems like she wanted a new life, got rid of Josh, goes to jail, and gets rid of the kids.
Yeah.
And everything that her and Josh had together is gone. She's selling things, his things. She's getting rid of his things. That's odd to me.
Mhm.
He hadn't even been found yet.
Mhm.
But in March of 2022, Josh is found. His remains are found on Windows Cliff, which is about 7 miles from Burgess Falls.
Yeah, Wendell Cliffs is about that far northwest.
Right.
And I got to say, that is some rough terrain. First off, you got to cross a river to get
Really.
there. Yeah. And then the terrain between Burgess Falls and um, Wendell Cliffs is rough. Yeah, it's hills, it's up and down, it's tree covered. It's rough. There's a few fields in that
Hmm.
area. Um, but as the crow flies from Burgess Falls State Natural Area to Wendell Cliff State Natural Area, is some rough terrain.
Yeah. And now I've asked you this when we were talking about this case the other day. I said, is there any way with his health issues that he could have become disoriented
Hmm.
and wandered 7 miles?
Well, the diabetes is one thing.
Right,
If he'd been without insulin, probably not a lot of functionality.
right.
But having spinal stenosis and one of the major effects of spinal stenosis is numbness in your limbs, especially your legs. I find it very difficult to believe he could easily, cross that terrain, especially 7 miles of it.
7 miles.
He'd be good at 700 feet.
Right. I
Um,
mean, his aunt said that he could not walk a half a mile, quarter mile.
mhm,
Um, he had problems bending over and trying to pick something up even with his back,
mhm.
neuropathy in his feet.
Yeah, it's from the spinal stenosis.
Right.
Yeah. So again, looking at the terrain, in order to get to an open field from Burgess Falls,
Mhm.
you probably would have to cross that river and go up and over a pretty steep hill that's covered in trees.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, not gonna happen. Not with somebody suffering like that.
And Jessica did also tell the police that she dropped him off at a gas station.
Okay,
So there's
so
4 stories. I mean,
well, I mean, by Burgess Falls, right?
right.
There's Chestnut Oaks Farm Store and Kitchen.
He was last seen at the Gulf station.
Okay, I'm not saying that you know that's not true, but at Burgess Falls, I'm not able to find a Gulf station right there, right around the falls. Now, a few miles away,
Yeah.
there's Cockspur Market. It likely was a Gulf. I don't know. There's no gas pumps out there that I see.
Yeah, and it may have not have been like a gas station. It could have been like I don't know. But
Yeah,
my question is, he's seen at 9 a.m.
where?
On surveillance
Uh
at,
huh.
at a Gulf station. I'm not exactly sure. Is there like a Spring something road or Spring Creek Road? And that's just popping up in my head.
Well, I mean, like there's Old Mill Road, Old Cane Creek, Burgess Falls Road.
Burgess Falls Road. I know they were on that road. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe that could have been where those houses were, some of these abandoned homes.
Yeah. Okay.
But so he's seen at 9 for sure, 9 o'clock
Mm-hmm.
on surveillance
Yeah.
with Jessica. He's wearing, he's got tennis shoes on. She's actually wearing his size 12 slides, Nike slides, which
Mm-hmm.
is, she wears a size like 7.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like they got up and ran in to get coffee or something. It's just something like that.
Sure. Yeah.
But then they leave there, and Jessica claims they went to a park and play, and I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's like a park or what, but they go there and they park and they sleep for a couple hours.
Well, all right. So think about this. At Window Cliffs, there's this huge when you enter the natural or the state reserve or whatever it is, there is a giant parking lot that you park on,
Mhm,
and then you have to walk a trail down to the cliffs, the attraction, I
mhm,
guess. Um, and there's really nothing there except for like a state park building that may be a maintenance building halfway from the parking lot to the
mhm.
end of it, but it's off kind of by itself. I would see this as being a place where people would go and I would see this as a place where people go and lay down and sleep in their car, because
Okay.
there's nothing else around it. There's no houses right there on it. It's surrounded by trees. It's,
Mhm.
you know, off by itself. I could see that. And I
Okay.
think maybe, we talk about there being flecks of the truth in every story.
That's right.
And that may be part of a fleck of
Mhm,
truth in that, yeah, they did go somewhere and sleep in the car.
mhm.
If I were looking at this and said it's either Burgess Falls or Window Cliffs, it's going to be Window Cliffs because it's more secluded.
Right.
Burgess Falls is pretty active place. It's open, you
Mhm.
know, and there's a lot of houses right around Burgess Falls. But Window Cliffs, no, it's by itself.
So let's just okay, so she leaves there. Give her the benefit of the doubt. Let's say that, they did go somewhere and sleep.
Hmm.
And they wake up and Josh says, "Let's go to Burgess Falls." So they go. For what? I don't know. I don't understand what they were going for. Um, maybe to break in homes. I
Hmm.
don't I don't know. Maybe it was because he was wanting to find some jobs down that road. I don't
Hmm.
know. But at 12 o'clock, she was seen by park rangers.
Mhm.
and that's documented. Josh was never seen anytime after that. And it was nearly 5 p.m. before she tells his family.
Mhm.
So, yeah, what was she doing? Was she looking for him? Let's say she was. Let's say this all happened. Let's say they did go in this abandoned house together and she distracts and leaves, distracts park rangers and leaves.
Mhm.
And she thinks he takes off. She goes and gets gas. She comes back and can't find him.
Mhm.
And but we just discussed there's no way that he could have walked 7 miles in those conditions in the way it was,
No, because
what he was.
at the end of the day, he was found by Wintercliffs.
Yes. Yes, which was 7 miles, and they
Mhm.
did these extensive searches,
Mhm.
never found him.
You know, it
Now
sounds honestly to me like he was dropped off.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it does sound like that. It does sound that way
Mhm.
because if he would have passed away, say he did make it a mile, 2
Mhm.
miles, and fell out, you know, animals are not gonna take him that far.
You know, you've asked me that, and after looking at the terrain and seeing just how daunting and the how hilly it is, no, I wouldn't think so at all.
Right. I mean, right.
Mhm.
How did he get that far away? I mean, and then some property owner finds it, finds his remains.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if they found any clothing or anything like that either.
Mhm.
It had been, what, 9.5, 10 months before he was found. So it's, I don't know. It baffles me of what could have happened because not an,
Well,
no animal is going to take him off that far, and he couldn't have walked that far.
right. And most of the, agriculture that goes on around there is cattle and hay. So it's not like there's a lot of farming in the area. And in the area where he was found, it's not like there's a lot of people that hike that a whole lot.
No. Well, I mean, there's hiking trails and things through there, but
Well, remember at Windy Cliffs, there's Windy Cliffs Trail.
yeah.
That is the trail that goes down to the cliffs and then, moseys on back around and follows Cane Creek and that kind of stuff. And Cane Creek was another obstacle in his way between the two.
And, if that's where they were, say they were at Windows Cliff and they weren't at Burgess Falls, wouldn't you say that? Why not say that? Why not say that?
Yeah, I think she knew he was there and she was scared to lead him to him too fast. I mean, remember, he was almost completely decayed when they found him.
And autopsy, they weren't able to determine the cause of death
Exactly.
because too much deterioration.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is it just it's heartbreaking.
Mhm.
It's heartbreaking. And why now have so many years passed and nothing's been done?
Yeah.
No, there's not even a like a say. It's just like, well, he just walked out there and
Yeah.
got on his own.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, to put this into perspective, it is southwest of the city of Cookeville, a few miles.
Mhm.
It's kind of out in the Boiling Springs area between Boiling Springs and Baker's Crossroads. Very rough terrain. And um, again, I would say Burgess Falls is going to be a harder place to hide because it's more open. There's probably more traffic there. I mean,
And
that's a draw for tourism.
right, and he had family right there too, so
Yeah.
they're looking.
Yeah.
They're looking. I mean, they're gonna know that area, and they're gonna be looking
Yeah.
out for him.
And just there's just not a lot of evidence of, convenience stores and stuff right around Burgess Falls. Um, unless you go, kind of south and
Mhm.
away from it quite a ways. But now you get up here towards Window Cliffs, and again, there's just not a lot of evidence of convenience stores and places that you would stop on the way there unless it was some kind of, tourist trap or something like that.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is it feels pretty deliberate.
And why didn't he have a phone? Where's his phone? I mean, he didn't have his. It does. I mean, his insulin, wallet, everything's in the car. Well,
Mhm.
I'm like I said, I'm very confused with this.
Mhm.
Now I know during the investigation or when they were trying to find Josh while he was still missing,
Mhm.
there was a lot of problems, with Putnam County,
Mhm.
and I think the family was even blocked from contacting them.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
The sheriff and the DA.
Right.
Yeah.
At one point, I know that Josh's aunt did go to Bryant Dunaway and kind of what's going on. He said, "Well, TBI picked this up," and she said, "Well, I just went to the TBI and asked them about it. What's going on?" And they were like, "We didn't pick this up." So she goes back to Bryant Dunaway and she says,
You lied to
"You
me.
lied to me." And he
Mhm.
said, "Well, they're not going to tell you anything, everything." She said, "But they're going to tell me whether or not they picked up the case."
Mhm.
So there you go. I mean, so there was a lot of, and that's not the first. We've covered a lot of cases and a lot of victims
Mhm.
that are out of that district and have a
Mhm.
lot of issues with the DA, Bryant Dunaway, and the sheriff's department in Putnam County. I've heard some things about Eddie Ferris that are not quite nice.
Yeah.
I don't live there, but I know what I've heard from, the people that do live there.
Right.
And they're not, they're, it's concerning.
Yeah.
It's very concerning.
Can't trust them.
No, you can't, you can't trust them at all.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so, it seems like they would sit down and have a very long conversation with at least the people that were with Jessica and Josh the night before this
Mhm.
happened,
Mhm.
and sit down with the boyfriend, sit down with Nathan. "What's going on?" "What do you know?"
Yeah.
It's
It just doesn't make any sense that law enforcement in that area is acting the way they're acting, not just about Josh Bohannon's case, specifically because we're covering that, but there's a trend there
Yes.
in that district,
Mhm.
in all those counties.
Yes.
And, if I were a voter in that district, I would feel more comfortable voting for somebody that I knew was doing something,
Yes.
regardless of their disposition or social status or any of that kind of stuff.
You're right.
But instead, it just don't feel like that.
There's no compassion.
Mm-mm.
There's no compassion,
Yeah.
and like I said, this is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
Well, again, I go back to our experiences on this channel. eh, People just can't give up.
Right.
As frustrating as it is, and as people get, you can't give up.
Can't give up.
You have to keep the conversation going. You have to keep people's pictures out there. You have to keep the details that in front of the public so that if something does come along, it's talked about, it's reported, it's investigated, whatever.
And we talked about this with Sarah Phillips' case out of Gibson County, Tennessee,
Yeah.
and how her family was treated.
Yeah.
And I get it. I understand that they have to, you know, they have to there has to be a certain amount of hush.
Yeah.
There has to be.
Well, let me throw an interesting statistic at everybody.
Okay.
A very close person in my life told me that they moved to Tennessee way back in maybe the early 80s.
Hmm.
And when they moved to Tennessee, they understood that there were some 30 sheriffs in the state of Tennessee under indictment. And that was back in the early 80s. And,
Hmm.
that's scary.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Well, and the trend seems to have continued in a lot of places around Tennessee as we hear stories about this and these kind of things like what happened to Josh Bohannon.
Yes.
And so it leads me to believe there is a ongoing problem in those law enforcement agencies,
Mhm.
and it rotates, it changes. They're humans. No, they're not
Sure.
perfect,
Sure.
but yeah, man, this is beyond.
And they're not all bad.
messing up. Yeah.
They're not all bad. I know I did hear from, what I did hear watching Josh Bohannon's aunt on TC Spotlight.
Mhm.
Um, she did say that there were some really good ones in there too.
Sure.
At White County, at the park rangers. I mean, there were people that really did care and try.
Mhm.
And there are good police officers. There are good people in positions that can do a lot. But
They're still human.
they're still human, and there's still some that aren't good.
Yeah.
There's still some that should not be there.
Right.
And after it just seems like a track record. I think I can like there's like 52 cases in this district
In this district alone?
in Tennessee's 13th Judicial District that need to be reopened, revisited, a missing, things
Mhm.
like that.
Mhm.
52. That's more than a trend. That's
Mm.
like
It seems intentional almost.
it does.
Yeah.
And it seems like they don't want to spend any money.
Yeah.
And these are people. These victims are people. And just because they have made some mistakes in their life or gotten lost along the way, it's not hard to do in this world these days,
Mhm.
does not mean that they don't deserve to be found and
Mhm.
to have justice. And
Mhm.
that's something we talk about every single case.
Yep. Yep.
And it seems like these people that have problems with drugs or, a rough life.
Yeah. So I want to say, to Josh Bohannon's family, keep going, keep the conversation going, keep the
Mhm.
pictures published, and anything we can do to help, please let us know.
Yeah.
And to the audience, thank you so much for watching. And if you do know something, please say something, even if it's to us in a message or a comment or an email, whatever.
That's right.
Speak up, and you can remain anonymous if you want to. But don't forget when you're watching Walking Between Shadows to hit the like and subscribe button. But we always make it very clear the most important thing to us is that you share
Mhm.
what you watch and share our videos. And hopefully, it'll get to somebody who actually does know something or has the uh, guts to stand up for it.
Yes.
So, we definitely appreciate you and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah.
All right, Taryn, is that it for Josh Bohannon?
I believe that's it.
Okay. Well, again, thanks everybody, and we'll see you again on the next
Bye.
one. Bye.